let's explore a little bit more how innovation really is happening. From an aggregated abstract perspective, we can say that innovation is really an information processing process, and this in a structured form. What do I mean with this? First, we need to distinguish two different understandings how innovation happens. Remember the story from the beginning of Ruth Handler and the invention of Barbie. Here, innovation was seen as a result of a frustrated user or a user with an open need. It was not a systematic process, it was just happening by accident. And the idea here is that innovation, or invention better so to say, is happening anyway. And then the task of a company in this process is to define so-called bridging strategies, to build absorptive capacity, to build procedures to capture these external inputs for innovation and inventions that are already there, transfer them into the organization, perhaps reverse engineer them and bring them to market. And so here in this perspective, the focus is on managing an inflow of external technologies or insights. And this is what very often nowadays is called open innovation as a new paradigm in managing innovation. And we have to say that the users as originators of innovation, their motivation to engage in inventive activities is not to sell their innovation, but profiting from using it. On the other side is more the Schumpeter perspective. And this perspective is that innovation is the result of a dedicated activity of a firm. It's a systematic process spanning over different stages, starting with opportunity recognition, going up to market launch. And here the idea is really that we manage the risk of uncertainty and manage the risk of innovation and really focus on internal problem solving and technological development for which we need creativity. Manufacturers in this perspective, who are the source of innovation, they innovate as they want to profit from selling the invention. So you see two rather large differences, and they can be seen like paradigms in the also study of innovation management. We, for our lecture here, will focus a little bit on this side, that really we say innovation is an activity of the firm. But, and this is why I said it, we also should keep in mind this is different paradigm. Okay, let's say we are a firm and we want to innovate out of our own activity. Then we normally follow a process of innovation. We'll come to this back in a minute, but the idea is that companies engage in a stream of activities starting with what we call ideation, idea generation, opportunity recognition. We evaluate these ideas and we develop so-called concepts. Concepts are not ready products, but are a combination of an idea and a technical solution how to solve this idea. Then normally here we have a lot of alternatives. We do a big concept review and then we decide for one concept that we put into realization or research and development. This actually is the stage where the engineers come into place. The former side is more about marketing and innovation management. Now the engineers come into place and try to find technical solutions to realize this concept. And then finally, you have a final prototype or product, which we then launch in the market, which is what we call nurture of the innovation and technological knowledge created. On the right-hand side of this picture, it's about doing the right things, and this is the effectiveness of an innovation process. Here we talk about fit to market. Are we really developing the right product? This is decided on this side. On the other, it's about doing things right, the efficiency, meaning time to market or cost to market. So overall, this is a simple structure of an innovation process and the activities we do in a firm-driven innovation process. So if we take this picture, we can say companies, and this somehow is the nature of innovating, have to acquire two kinds of information. As in the end, innovation is a knowledge creation or information gathering process. So to start the process, we need information. Need information is information about the needs and preferences of users and customers. It really is an answer on the question, what's the benefit that the innovation shall provide, which are open problems really we should solve as a company. It's either explicit information, we want a car that drives better, faster and consumes less fuel. But sometimes it's also latent, implicit information. We want a car that does things we even don't know about, that we have this demand, but perhaps it's a car that is automatically finding a parking place, that is calling an ambulance in the case of an accident. Some things we really didn't consider as a problem. Once they are there, they really excite us and differentiate the product. So getting access to the right need information influences the so-called fit to market and therefore the effectiveness of the innovation process. And very often if a company fails with their innovative endeavors, it's not as the technological was not ready, but it is really that new products or services flop as they do not meet customer requirements. And if a product does not have this fit to market, it just means the firm did not get sufficient access to need information. And this is really difficult. If you talk to practitioners, they will tell you, well, actually this happens to a lot of problems. This happens to a lot of inventions in new products. Most of them fail. And the reason is as this need information is sticky. That's a technical economic term, and the stickiness of information is, and you can read here a complicated definition, but the stickiness of information relates to information which is difficult to transfer from a source to a receiver. And very often information about your needs as a customer is sticky. Why? As perhaps a company and you as a customer speak different languages. Perhaps also as you as a customer really can't express what you want to achieve. I give you some reasons for stickiness of information. It's really the information needed by development may be tacit, implicit. A simple, silly example. Probably you know how to ride a bicycle. But can you explain someone how to ride a bicycle? It's pretty tough. We all know how to do it, but really explaining someone how to do it is very difficult. One has to experience and learn it by trial and error. Another is you just have to transfer so much information. So you order something customized for you, and you know exactly what you want, but you just forget to describe some of the details. So the provider can't really come up with the solution. Both are instances of stickiness of information. And we just know from plenty of research that very often customer need information is sticky. And the result is that a lot of new products flop or fail in the marketplace. But let's say we have a good information process in place and we really got the right access to need information. And we developed a concept that really addresses customer needs. Then, of course, the next stage is to realize it. And this is why we need solution information. Solution information now is rather technical information. It's technical knowledge how a need can be transferred into a product or a service. It asks after the question of the principle behind the need. And here it's often information that is already known somewhere. This could be basic technical principles, science principles, or perhaps a solution already found in a different industry. However, sometimes the information is not existing and we have to create it by an innovative process in the company. And so this talks about the efficiency of the innovation process or new product development. It's determining the time or the cost to market. And so what's now the problem with solution information? For this, let's very quickly talk about what it means to innovate. But Just to summarize before we go into this again, when an innovation project does not meet its time and cost to market requirements, the cause is very often that the development team did not have access to the right solution information or was searching for the wrong place. They just could not achieve the technical progress they wanted to make. So what's the reason behind? I said earlier in the introduction that innovation is an act of information processing. It's an activity of disciplined problem solving, just in the realization, in the research part. So how you solve a problem? What do you need to solve a problem? I would say you need two ingredients. The one ingredient we need to solve a problem is search for information. So we need information and we search for information. We look for prior art, for the state of the art. And if you start to solve a problem, you should really look what knowledge is out there already. And how you perform the search is based on your prior experience, where you start to search with search terms you put into Google or whatever system. So it's influenced by your expectation about where this existing knowledge should be. But then, if you really talk about innovation, perhaps not all knowledge is existing. So you have to create new technical knowledge. And how we create new technical knowledge? Well, we experiment. We do trial and error learning. We set up an experiment. We see what's the outcome. We measure, is this what we wanted to achieve? Very often we failed, and we reconstruct the experience and we learn by trial and error. And so to conduct these two core activities of problem solving, to do this we need knowledge and we need creativity. It's a way how we set up the experimentation, but also the way how we set up the search is both based on our experience and knowledge, but also on our creativity to perhaps think out of the box. And here exactly the second big problem comes into place. It's what we call the problem of local search. As you all know this, you wanted to solve a problem, you were doing it with the knowledge you had available, but you did not succeed. Then you talked about this with a friend or colleague, and the friend said, well, this is a problem, did you consider this? And you said, oh no, I did not think about it, but this makes a lot of sense. As you were stuck in a paradigm, you were stuck in a tunnel. And this is actually what we know is one of the largest challenges to innovate. It's what we call the bias for local search. So the bias for local search as a problem means we have a tendency as human beings to only look for solution information in our own technical domain based on previous experience. Sometimes this is very helpful. So if you want to strive for incremental innovation, then actually it's good to build on your experience. However, if you want to go for radical innovation, to really find a novel solution, your prior experience may be not helpful as you are stuck in this paradigm. And so the local search bias is defined as a negative biasing by previous experience that may block an innovator to find really the best solution to a given question. We may reinvent the wheel or as a result have too long time to market, too high cost to market. And this is why managing innovation is very different to many other leaderships and operational tasks in a company. For marketing and operations, often experience is king. We really need experience to do our job good. Of course, we also need experience to innovate, but at the same time, this experience is a big hurdle to really think innovative. And to overcome this is one of the large challenges of managing innovation. So overcoming these two challenges is a central success factor for systematic innovation management. And actually, you can structure a lot of lectures, many tools in these two domains. If you learn about a best practice, a tool, a method how to manage innovation, think about, does it help us to get access to sticky need information, or does it help us to reduce our bias for local search and really explore the entire space? So, Based on this understanding that good innovation management means to reduce the problems of stickiness of need information and the local search bias, perhaps you already know some methods that help us to really reduce these problems. There are many of them, and in the following I will just introduce a few. And each of the bullet points that now follow could make an entire lecture of how to do it. So that's not the point. The point here is to give you a little bit an overview of some method and best practices to really solve these two problems. So measures to get access to sticky need information. What are companies doing? Well, on the one hand side, they do market research. They ask for the voice of the customer. They can do it in focus groups, what we call qualitative research, or they can use surveys, which is quantitative research. They may have combined methods, and one that I personally like a lot is outcome-driven innovation, a method that really tries to understand what's the problem, the job of a product that has to be solved so that a company, that a customer gets happy. We also, in companies, rely on trend studies and third-party data. A more recent approach is, instead of asking customers, we may observe them. And think about if need information is sticky, perhaps we can't ask customers what it is, as they can't tell us. So by observing customers, which has been called empathic design, in a real environment, perhaps we better understand what are open problems. We also can do this in a lab or in a clinic. We can integrate customers strongly into the design process of a new product, participative design. And finally, and this is, to be honest, in many companies, the largest source for input of need information. It's not really talking to customers or observing them, but it's really using existing data. So companies just explore the sales data of the last season. They see what is doing well, what is not so doing well, and then just do some educated guesses by an experienced salesperson what to do in the next season and how to create a new variant. You purchase trend studies, use analysts and consultants. Or also, if you're honest in your company, very often the novel product just comes from studying competitors and copying what they already have in place. So you see there's these few and many more methods described to really get access to need information. Our second problem was that we want to reduce the problem of local search. That in technical development, we really expand our search scope and are not stuck in a paradigm. What is helping us here? So one way is really we change our search and experimentation style. So you all heard perhaps about creativity techniques like brainstorming, tweets, QFD and so on. And these techniques should help us to really improve our search and experimentation style. They should bring us out of the box of our common thinking, and a lot of the methods of technical problem solving actually start here. Another reason is, and these brainstorming and creativity techniques start with the assumption we solve the problem. The other assumption is, well, no, the knowledge is already existing there. So we just have to do more effective search for external information. We broaden the breadth and the width of search, something that has been called open innovation. We assign gatekeepers a special boundary spanning roles in our organization, so functions which duty it is to go to the outside and try to find valuable knowledge and information for our company. We build absorptive capacity, establish these bridging strategies. Another approach is to really partner with organizations with different knowledge. This is why many companies go into networks or alliances. They engage themselves in R&D consortia. They integrate their suppliers in R&D. So the idea here is we partner with organizations that have complementary but different knowledge stocks to get better solution information. That's often also a reason why we engage in a merger and acquisition, or do it more informal, talk to other people on a conference, at a workshop to learn from their knowledge. Finally, we can find people with different knowledge. And this is really can be both internal and external. In many organizations, we nowadays talk about diversity. And diversity from an innovation perspective is not really about employing more women or so on, but it's really to get a diverse workforce, a workforce with people from different cultures, different functions, different sexes, and so on. It's only if we are a little bit more colorful in our team, we also can think out of the box. Interdisciplinary teams, probably the most important success factor in many studies, that really an innovation team has to be interdisciplinary for exactly the same reason. Some companies engage in job rotation, systematically place their employees in different functions, again with the idea to enlarge their span of experience and prevent a bias for local search. So, and I could continue hours and hours in talking about these measures, but as I said, that's not the point. The idea here really is to provide you some structure and a framework to really look on how to manage innovation on these two perspectives, getting access to neat information or reducing the bias for local search. And in our lectures, we will discuss these and other methods and organizational principles in much larger detail.